After hearing the community's cry for better in-game content in Skull and Bones, I started to think to myself about what a raid could look like in the game. So let's talk about that. Now, this would not be a raid with a ton of mechanics that you'd have to learn. It would just be made up of the activities that are already present in the game. It would be made for a group of 6 captains working together to stop a massive DMC or company raid on the East Indies or Red Isle section of the map, depending on which raid you run. I'll give a short rundown on what to expect first, and then I'll go into far more detail after that. And I'll just explain it for one faction, but everything I go over can apply to both raids. Now, the mode will contain random skirmishes for control over territory with a few base attack and defense phases that can be approached in a few different ways, ultimately ending in a large fleet battle and a man-o'-war boss fight. The idea here is that the Compagnie Royale has managed to trick each of the major factions in the Red Isles and the coast of Africa into chasing down a false lead on one of several massive treasure galleons. After several days at sea, the 6 ships that return home first land at a nearby outpost to resupply and learn some terrible news. They find out that while the most deadliest fleets around were following a lie, the Compagnie has moved in and taken over the faction capitals of the Fara, Sea People, and Unguana, as well as their foundries, lumberyards, and settlements. Most of the outposts have been taken as a result, and a blockade is now in place around St. Anne. But the worst part is that in a few days, the final push for St. Anne will begin, giving the Compagnie Royale complete control of the Red Isles and the African coastline. When you arrive, you'll have access to a few outposts for fast travel at first, but supply lines have been cut off, which means you'll have limited ammunition and limited ammunition types until they're open again. And you cannot access your full warehouse until you reach St. Anne. Now, your mission will be to take back the various regions by attacking foundries, lumberyards, settlements, and capitals under company control. Once this is done, you'll defend St. Anne and then make a final push into company territory alongside a temporary faction alliance made up of Fara, Sea People, and Unguana forces. This assault will start off as a large fleet battle close to the enemy capital, but it'll eventually be broken up by a massive man-o'-war boss fight that the 6 captains must face as a group. Each commander that you defeat during the raid will give you a chance at a raid drop. Every capital that you take back will have a chance at a raid drop. And, of course, the best drops come from the final boss, which should be its own set separate from the others that you can get from the commanders and capital attacks. That's pretty much the gist of it, but if you would like some more detail, well, feel free to listen on. So, the setup here is that the Compagnie Royale admirals in the area have gotten tired of the royal families wasting time with the locals. And rather than wait any longer to take control of the area, a plan is put together to send every faction on a wild goose chase off the map. Each faction will hear rumors about a massive treasure galleon sailing out on a specific day. But each rumored galleon will be heading in a different direction than the others, keeping each faction unaware of the other's plans. After almost a week or so of chasing down the lead, 6 captains head back home, arriving at an outpost randomly chosen by the game. This is where the company plans are revealed and where the raid begins. Now, starting out, your initial goal will be to get supplies, which can be done by attacking foundries, lumberyards, and settlements that are now controlled by the Compagnie. Each location will be supplying the enemy with either special ammunition, things like sea fire, bombards, mortars, torpedoes, you get the idea, but also furniture and weapons. Now, each one of these that you take back will either supply your group with large amounts of that ammunition type, or it'll weaken the enemy by reducing the amount of units in the area that use those weapons and furniture the foundries, lumberyards, or settlements were producing. Let's say a foundry was making bombards and a lumberyard was making furniture that made bombards more powerful. Taking over that lumberyard and foundry reduces the damage bombards can make, and reduces the amount of bombard units. Taking back the foundries will also open the supply lines for the outposts connected to it, allowing for more fast travel options and for vendors to continue stockpiling that special ammo for you to resupply with. By the way, this can all be done however the group decides. All 6 can stay together and work as a large team, or smaller teams can be designated to cover more ground. But you will want to work in one region or zone at a time for the best results. Soon as your group has enough resources, you can decide to either attack the main capital in the area, move on to another region or zone and continue retaking foundries, weakening the enemy even more before attacking the capitals, or if you think you're ready, you can head straight for St. Anne for an intense defense phase. Groups who continue to take out foundries, lumberyards, and settlements will eventually head to the capitals and can take out that capital's commander. Commanders are going to be mini bosses that you could eliminate before they head to St. Anne with their attack fleets. The foundries that you attack can also affect that commander in the area, making the fight easier. Let's say, for example, this commander has one-hit kill mortars. If you attack the correct foundry, lumberyard, or settlement that's producing this, the one-hit kill effect will be removed. Eliminating the commander will reduce the amount of units you will face when defending St. Anne, and it will remove the mini boss fight for that fleet during the defense phase. And it also returns the capital to the correct faction, removing company influence in that area. Defeating all 3 commanders and taking back all 3 capitals will also remove the blockade on St. Anne completely, allowing your group to sail in uncontested so you can set up for the defense phase, which will be 3 waves of horde mode against the remaining units. Now, groups who head straight to St. Anne will have to break through that blockade, which will not be easy, but you will have instant access to your warehouse and St. Anne's resources when you dock. The defense of St. Anne happens right after. Now, each mini boss or commander gets their entire fleet in this situation and 3 waves each, which means you will have a 9-wave horde mode to take on with a boss fight every 3 waves. But you can still reduce the commander's effectiveness depending on which foundries, lumberyards, and settlements you attacked before this phase. After St. Anne is secured, you will still need to take back the majority of the remaining foundries, lumberyards, and settlements, and all 3 capitals because the regions will still be controlled by the Compagnie, which means limited fast travel options and tough skirmishes every time you leave St. Anne since the bonuses from the foundries will still be active. Basically, leaving too much company influence on the map will work against you, and in this situation, I would like to see foundries being retaken by the company if you took too long to take out the capitals, blocking off supply lines that you opened outside of St. Anne even after you've retaken it. But foundries cannot be retaken while a defense or attack phase is active. That is just a dick move. Now, most groups will want to take out the foundries, lumberyards, settlements, and then head to the capitals, and then St. Anne after that. But some strong crews may want to test themselves with a direct approach, and this should be an option, just not an easy. And if you fail your St. Anne defense mission, you and the entire group will wipe, ending the raid. And if each captain is sunk during the final boss, this can also end the raid too. The rest of the time, being sunk works the rest of the way it does now. Finally, once the majority of the foundries, lumberyards, and settlements have been retaken, after all 3 capitals have been turned back over to their rightful factions, you and your group will make a push towards the company capital near St. Anne. Waiting for you there will be a fleet made up of allied forces working together to take out the company admiral responsible. Now, this should be a large fleet battle against a ton of ships and a bunch of defensive towers, but with the forces reduced at this point, it is just little more than a shooting gallery until we hear boss music. This is when the largest ship we have ever seen sails in with nearly 100 cannons on its broadsides, the Man of War. Now, while I have ideas for a raid, I am curious how the community would want a boss fight like this to play out. Also, What items drop from the raid? Well, I would leave that in your capable hands too. What would you want to get out of a Skull and Bones raid? Should it be cosmetics only, or should there be a set of weapons and furniture unique to the commanders and another set unique to the boss as well? I feel like I would want both, but that could just be me being greedy. But leave any ideas, questions, or concerns below, and of course I will be happy to explain anything I may have forgotten. And last, I have a few bullet points here to wrap up with. This raid would be for max level ships only. This means the highest current available ship level for you at that time, plus 6 out of 6 upgrades. This would be an in-game activity with bosses and mini bosses, and I would like to see this start at level 13 and then go to 14, 15, and then 16 respectively. That means lower level ships would not be able to last until the end. I am sorry. Next, the raid should scale as the seasons go on. Currently, we are at level 13 for season 3, and in season 4, we should hit level 14. The raid should adapt to this, which means it would start at 14 and then go up to 17. Next, one checkpoint after the Saint Anne defense. Since I have no idea how long this raid would take, if it's chunky, we may need a checkpoint. Alright. Next, each raid takes place in only one half of the map. The open ocean is not a part of the raid. I know people have mixed feelings about the open ocean, so for this, let's just leave it out. If you're doing the DMC raid, you're over in the East Indies. If you're doing the Compagnie raid, you're over here in the coast of Africa and in the Red Isles. And that's it. Thank you for coming by. Again, leave any comments. I have been Captain Cash the Stampede. Take it easy.